Hi, before we start this episode, we have a quick content warning. This manga has certain themes and imagery that some people will find upsetting. If you're worried about these, please find the names of these themes in the description. Thank you and enjoy this episode. I think it's just the tiny eyelashes.
Never thought we'd find the eyelashes scary.
Hello, welcome to OCHATO, the fortnightly podcast where we drink tea and review manga. I am Jade.
I am Oliver.
And I'm Suellen.
Every 2 weeks, we pick a manga that one of us has recommended and we read up to a certain chapter and discuss the manga with a megaton of spoilers. This week, we are reading Usamaki by Junji Ito up to chapter 6, and this was recommended by me. But before diving in, we must know the answer to the most important question. What is everyone drinking in their mug?
Have a guess.
Wrong.
It's berry tea.
Berry tea?
Mm.
What kind of berries?
Jade, I have no idea. It's purple.
Purple. That sounds a bit like, I wanted to say blueberries, but they'd be blue, right?
It's purple berry. It comes
That
in
real?
a purple flavour. It's delicious.
Interesting. What about you, Suellen?
Can't remember.
What?
It's quite bitter. I think it has green tea and
Oh
some
no.
orangey in it. It's fine. It's fine. I had this before and I was able to fall asleep, so it's okay.
That is good. Unlike having the majestic Earl Grey.
Oh yeah.
For context, Suellen had some Earl Grey past. When was it? Like midday.
It was
And
like
then-
in the afternoon, yeah, like 2 or 3.
and then could not sleep at all.
No, tea kicked my ass. Yeah.
Yeah. I currently am drinking a nighttime tea because
delicious.
I am so sleepy and very tired. Cool. So we are reading Uzumaki by Junji Ito, and this was first published in 1998. And the official description on Viz is as follows. Kurozucho, a small fog-bound town on the coast of Japan, is cursed. According to Shuuichi Saitou, the withdrawn boyfriend of teenager Kirie Goshima, their town is haunted not by a person or being, but a pattern. Usamaki, the spiral, the hypnotic secret shape of the world. I'm curious to know, what were your first impressions of Usamaki?
I just realized that I may have read further on because I thought we reading up till, well, including chapter 8 instead of 6. So I'm just trying to figure out. Yeah, I'm looking at it now, like which one's
Chapter 6 is the one with the hair.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to remember them in chronological order. It's fine. I'm just excluding the ones I read. Okay. So my first impression of this manga is that, yeah, it's incredibly well drawn, which might be a bad thing in some people's case if you're a bit sensitive to, I don't know, body, like gore, body horror. But to the horror fans out there, you will get a kick out of this. So my first impression, yeah, it's very well drawn. And I think the way Junji Ito sort of builds this tension is quite well done. So at the very beginning, you sort of get sucked in straight away, like, ooh, what's the spiral? Like, what's going on? Why is everyone acting so weird? You just know in your gut that it's not going to end well, and he delivers it to you, and whatever goes on exceeds your wildest, craziest fantasies. So yeah, overall, very good impression.
Decent. I'll be honest, I kept thinking about Naruto Maki, which is, have any of you read Naruto?
No.
So his name, the main character from Naruto, is called Naruto Uzumaki, or Uzumaki, and he goes to this ramen shop like all the time, and in the ramen they have this it's called Naruto Maki, and it's a type of kamaboko, or I think it's a cured fish surimi. Anyway, it's got a spiral on it, and he ate those, and I always associated. I actually for years thought they were called Uzumaki. So when seeing the title of the manga, I was like, "Yes, mate, I know these. I had these in ramen." I was wrong, but that tainted my whole experience.
Oh no!
So I was like, "Oh, it's about spirals," and I just kept thinking about ramen. But for the actual manga itself, I liked it. I liked the art style. I thought it worked well for horror. A lot of I guess the jump scares is a strong word. The scary panels kind of see coming. I honestly found it more funny than scary.
Wow.
It was like, oh man, but what if there was a spiral? And then of course there is a spiral. Every single time there's a flipping spiral. And you're like, hey, what's the weirdest thing they could do that involves spirals? And then it happens.
Yep.
So I enjoyed it. Nothing yet from it. Having said that, we only read 6 chapters, or at least I only read 6 chapters. Has yet surprised me immensely. But I have been enjoying it a lot. I was laughing out loud in chapter 6 when they have the hair turns into spirals, and then they have the hair like dance off.
Fair enough.
I'm like, really? Are we going here? I think I came in with my first impression was that it was going to be a scary manga, and so I came in kind of ready for that, and then it was, I guess, to the extent we've read less scary than I was expecting. But I've been enjoying it.
That's actually quite interesting because so I like to watch video essays on YouTube by people who have also like read or watched something, and actually there was a video essay on Uzumaki, and I was just scrolling through the comments of the YouTube video, and a lot of people were the same as you, Ollie, in that they found it funny up until a certain chapter that is beyond the scope of this paper. And so my first impression of Uzumaki was that I was kind of expecting to walk into something kind of creepy, kind of dark. And I think my expectations were kind of met from the beginning. The creepiness was there, the sort of not really knowing what kind of weird thing would happen next was actually quite exciting for me, and it was nice how the mangaka used their creativity really well, in that there were spirals appearing on certain things, and it's like this kind of slow, gradual reveal that things are getting infected, and it's just spreading, and oh my god, it's just this town of people. What are they going to do? But what was really interesting to me was also the fact that we see it from 2 main characters, especially Kirie and her boyfriend Saitou, I think his name was.
Shuichi Saitou, I think.
Yeah. So I liked that because it kind of gave us a lens through which to view the spiral infection with. Which characters did you find stood out to you in particular?
Oh, for me, I think she's called Azami Kurotani, who I'm sure I've messed her name up. So she's the girl that has like a little scar on her forehead that then becomes a spiral that then just consumes her. That was such a weird plotline. She was the one that stood out to me, I guess, because that was the first instance you have of like spirals affecting the general public. And also it was just so flipping weird.
Was that the one where the eventually the eyeball started
Yeah.
rolling in and then she disappeared?
It is exactly that one.
That one's a classic because like it's everywhere online. People have basically screenshotted it and placed it on every Junji Ito video essay.
Not surprised. It's a really good panel, actually. There's this panel where she like has her like eyeball falling into a spiral. And the spiral is like half her face. It's really well drawn, actually. It's quite horrifying.
Yeah. So in a way, like I'm actually spoiled by a lot of the key reviews because it's been plastered all over the internet. So when I saw that girl, I was like, so that's what's going to happen. So it kind of took the surprise away a little bit in a way. But I still enjoyed it. It still looked good, but it didn't have as much impact as
It wasn't like you turn the page and then it's just horror.
I'm like, what? I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that panel before.
Yeah.
It's awesome. That's all I could fixate on. Like,
yeah, I think for me, it would probably have to be Kirie's dad. Because I enjoyed watching the kind of slow descent. Okay, I didn't enjoy watching it. I was kind of a bit disturbed, but it was just watching this slow descent into spiral mania, like into the obsession with spirals, and the fact that he eventually did become a spiral right at the beginning. Well, not right at the beginning, but close to the beginning, when we're kind of that was one of the first times that we're shown that people have been twisted into spirals, right? And the fact that he was transfixed with his kiln was another really big moment for me, when Kirie peers into the kiln and sees all these roaring faces in the fire,
Actual
in the roaring
hell.
fire. Yeah, actual hell. Of the people who have died, and the voices that they hear coming from the kiln as well. I think the dad and his chapter, and the way it affected her mother as well, who ended up hospitalized with a phobia, an extreme phobia of spirals, really stood out to me, I think, as character wise. Yeah. And actually, I wanted to bring up an essay that I found on the internet about Uzumaki. It's by a person called Sean Moreland, and they write about the downward spiral, thoughts on Lovecraftian spirality and Ito's Uzumaki. So I actually found this essay really, really enjoyable to read. I thought the writing was great. So in this essay, it's revealed that Junji Ito said that the spiral evolution was inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's novels. And just for a bit of history, this essay states that H.P. Lovecraft's view of spirals was initially that of an entity incorporating visible cosmic order. And I think he kind of, it was kind of an admiration, I guess, because he responded well to a photograph of a spiral galaxy that was taken in 1910, I believe. But however, spirals later represented disorder and chaos to Lovecraft, who related it to the cosmic consequences of the second law of thermodynamics.
Ooh.
And Ito's clearly drawn upon Lovecraft's spiral reimaginings as also this kind of turn from something that we initially thought was, just the spiral, to something quite dark in Usamaki, which I thought was a really great thing that was explored. And I love that this essay talks about the different narratives that are paired with the compositions of the manga panels. So this essay talks about so, for example, Kirie's Rukan figure-like stance over her town in the opening panel to Uzumaki is compared to the figure in Caspar David Friedrich's painting, albeit with some differences. And I love that this essay also compares the spirals in the Uzumaki skies to Van Gogh's Starry Night, and it really thoughtfully touches upon the significance of fluid dynamics in art. I just really like this essay, so if you're interested, the link will be in the description. But on the subject of art, what were your thoughts on the art in Uzumaki?
I thought it worked really well for the horror genre. Really nice use of blacks in there, and I think much like we saw in Berserk and Oyasumi Pum Pum, the fact that some things are so dark it's hard to tell what's going on works really well to add atmosphere to it. I think also then that works really well when you're showing like these spirals and these kind of eldritch well, the spiral really, because it's made kind of from black rather than from lighter colors or just shades of gray. It seems darker than it could be otherwise, and a bit more, I suppose, a little less realistic, which is kind of the point. I thought the art style was bang on for horror. You can kind of tell, even like knowing nothing about the manga, just looking at some of the covers, it's clearly not like a light-hearted, cute kind of thing. So I thought the art was perfect for what it was doing.
Yeah, I think I have nothing to add. I mean, it's just like exceptional, like as proven by how many copies and how well known that Junji Ito is around the world. Yeah, even like the normal characters who are, just regular people, look creepy by themselves. Like, I don't know what it is. I think it's just the tiny eyelashes. Now that looking at it, it's not like, yeah, usually people just draw like a few eyelashes, but it's just all like if you zoom in on like a character's eye, they're all like surrounding the entire eye, like little strokes. That creeps me out a little bit. I think that what makes even ordinary characters.
Never thought we'd find the eyelashes scary.
Yeah, I mean, look at this one. Like,
Oh, whoa!
Oh, I see what you mean.
Wow!
That's,
yeah.
Which panel are we seeing? Just
that's the one with when the mother saw the bun on the nurses.
Oh yes.
When she did the when she has the phobia for
The spirals, funnily enough.
Yeah, so I think it's just exceptional.
I think the art style of Junji Ito is amazing in all the other works that I've read by him. Also, I agree with you, Ollie, about what you said about it working really, really well with the horror genre, and even with uses of shading, of minimal light sometimes, and the way that the body parts are drawn when they are sort of morphed into something else is really, really intricate sometimes. For example, when Kirie's dad was rolled himself up inside the tub, I found myself trying to follow the spiral almost.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just got lost because it was so intricate and just so full of detail, whilst at the same time being sort of just simplistic, like it's just the dude in a barrel. But at the same time, it's like very entrancing. Is that a word?
Yeah,
it'll be a word.
Just to throw a bit of a wild card at it, while I think the art style worked really well, I actually wasn't a massive fan of it. I think it was definitely the right choice, and I think many people will enjoy it. Just out of personal preference, I really like kind of more closer to, say, for example, Witch Hat Atelier. Nothing wrong with the art. I think it was really nicely detailed and everything, as you were saying.
It's interesting you bring up Witch Hat Atelier because in a way you can draw parallels with Junji Ito. They both pay quite a lot of attention to detail.
Yeah, they're both very detailed art styles.
So if Junji Ito were to do horror in the style of Witch Hat Atelier, do you think it would work?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I reckon it would. Partly because I think it would be quite a different type of horror. Witch Hat Atelier has a pretty cute, your average character in it is fairly cute. So I think the horror would be based more on the contrast between that and perhaps actions that are going on. E.g., if you've ever seen like Madoka Magica, that does that, or Yuki Yuna is a hero. Any of those kind of things where they contrast the really cute like art style versus the rather dark subject matter. But I don't know if it would have worked as well. I think it might have been more distracting. Honestly, I think the art was excellent.
Yeah, I feel like I think especially in Uzumaki, I get this feeling that the art feeds well into the story that the mangaka is trying to tell. In the way that the spirals are drawn, from the beginning there, they can be seen as quite disordered, but at the same time quite neat and just, a simple spiral. But we can see that as the story progresses, we see more and more of how the different sorts of spirals come into different sorts of situations. And I was wondering what you thought about the plot of Uzumaki and what we've seen so far.
That's again kind of a harder question. It's kind of wild where the plot goes. 1 minute it's a man looking at a spiral, next minute it's somebody getting obsessed. Cool, yeah, I can follow this. Then it's like this girl that goes from like, hey, she's got a birthmark to it's become a spiral, and then like a few pages later she's like lost her head. Similarly, the whole thing with the hair, like who saw that coming? So it feels more like, well, I suppose it is more a series of very short stories on spirals that are linked to one another rather than like a day-by-day plot, if you see what I mean. I'm enjoying it plot-wise. However, because the concept is pretty simple, as in there's a spiraling infection, I find that most of the surprises then tend to rely on the art rather than the plot. So, as soon as something is slightly off, it's like, it's a spiral, isn't it? There's a spiral somewhere. And then it's like, they brush aside their fringe and, oh, look, there's a spiral. Or they like open the box and, oh my God, a spiral. So the plot has been enjoyable. It's been a good conveyor for the art. And I think it works quite well in the kind of horror genre. But it's been so kind of off the wall that I don't know. I don't feel like it's as realistic. So if we compare this to, for example, Oyasumi Pum Pum. In Oyasumi Pum Pum, you had these like increasingly kind of messed up things occurring, but it was very grounded. It was never like, here's a big supernatural force that's like here and obvious and clear and causing issues. It was more like, is this Pum Pum's internal voice kind of thing? Whereas in Uzumaki, it is it's a supernatural spiral. Like, it's there, it's being creepy, and that for me made it lose its grounding in reality, which I suppose meant that when something twisted, next came along, it was less shocking for me, which may be why I ended up finding it kind of funny. Like the whole thing with the girl's face becoming spiral. Like I was gone. I was done. The whole like the hair standoff.
Tears of
Sure, she's
laughter.
like losing her life force to this hair, but it is quite funny. Whereas somebody losing their life force in Pum Pum was for me more horrifying.
Apart from the hair and the spiral face, were there any other moments that made you laugh?
The pottery getting increasingly just hellish was quite funny. I was like, there's going to be spiral pottery, isn't it? And then of course it's spiral pottery, and then she like opens up the kiln a bit later, and it spirals and twisted souls, and you're like, wow, that's I don't know. It's cracked me up.
Is that what you would have done in that situation? Would you have just started laughing when you peeked into the kiln and saw?
I probably would have gone mad in chapter 1. Let's be real.
I agree.
We would have been turned into spirals long ago.
Yeah, I don't think I would have made it this far.
Yeah, for me, the plot, I also like how it's centered around the two characters. So you've got this like thread going through, and it does sort of refer back to what happened in the previous chapter. How the boyfriend is always like, "We just get out of here," so many bad things.
He's got the right idea. In a horror, always leave immediately. You never want to be a part of this.
You see, I admire the main characters, the girl's resilience. She saw all these weird, crazy stuff going on around her. She's like, you know what? I'm gonna just keep living life. In this.
Truly spoken like a horror protagonist.
Yeah, and her boyfriend's continuously like, "Do you want to just run away?" And she's like, "Yeah, no."
Why are they dating? They seem to just argue.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
They don't
not-
seem like they're happy. Either.
I've seen nothing positive in their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like, I don't know, because they live in a town, right? So I guess maybe it's hard to meet people. Because was it that they went to a school in the next town or something?
He went to school in the next town, I think.
Oh.
And then he goes in and out of the town, so he can notice the energy shifts of the town. If I were her, I would have been like, "Yep, let's run away. Time to be homeless. I'm
Yeah.
16. I don't have a job. Time to be homeless. Rather be homeless than be in this town where people turn into spirals, or my hair freaking goes into a spiral as well, eating me."
Well, I mean, at the start, it was only small stuff, right? And I can
Yeah.
see, like, if somebody was like, "Hey, you know, uproot your life, come and leave town with me," you'd be like, maybe not. At which point would you have been like, "Okay, yeah, time to leave. Let's go."
At every point.
At every point. So somebody's looking at a spiral on the wall, and you're like, "Nah, mate, I'm done."
No, I mean, okay, fair enough. Like after her boyfriend's parents die, you would think, oh, it's just a wonderful event, it's very traumatic. But after your own dad and what you see in the kilt and in the sky, the freaking sky.
Yeah, the sky would have been when I bailed. I was like, "Nah,
Yeah.
nope."
Yeah.
And I've read on 2 more chapters, so take my word for it gets even weirder. And she's like, well, time to go to school, time to do my homework. It's living everyday life.
Again, that was for me the disconnect that I was talking about earlier. It's like, that's not how I'd expect somebody to react. You know, if you'd like seen your dad just turn into a spiral in a pottery, I'd be like, what is up? What is going on? You know, something's definitely wrong, and like, you know, go and talk to a professional, right?
I'll get therapy. Yeah.
Yeah, like I wouldn't just go to school the next day.
Yeah.
And for me, very few of the characters have acted like normal human beings.
To be fair, maybe because we haven't finished the volume, it's because they're all turning crazy.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
But we're not seeing that yet. This isn't like a slow descent. Apart from the boyfriend obviously looks worse than before, but he's always in a grumpy phase, like ever since we met him. So
there's spirals everywhere. He's lost both his parents. Of course, I think grumpy would be the understatement.
No, I mean, like, he looked the same. But I don't know. Just I like to see if that were the road that Junji Ito was going. I would like to see more sort of subtle clues of them maybe going slightly insane, because in a way, like, every chapters can be standalone because you don't actually see much change in personality in the main girl. The main guy, obviously, he's been through worse, so he just not in an okay place, but he's still making sane decisions. He hasn't been consumed by the spiral yet. I don't know what happens after that, but I don't know. What do you think, Jade?
Yeah, I think because I've finished Uzumaki, so I know what happens, and I think one of your theories is correct.
I don't know which theory I said. There was many random points.
Yeah, I think for me, I didn't really notice the sort of absurdity of it all when she's like, "Yep, gonna go to school," even though my dad crushed himself up and my mum's in. No, it wasn't her mum in hospital. It was Saito's mum.
Yeah.
But even then, like, that didn't even register on my mind that this shouldn't be like a normal in their life. I don't know if that's because I got sucked into it like a spiral.
Oh no.
But yeah, I thought it was a good sort of linear progression in a way. Like we start off with this introduction of this town and Kirie. She's looking out over the town and some weird shit's happening in the sky, but maybe things are going to be okay. And then you get this slow descent, and then at the end of chapter 6, it was the girl with the life force draining from her hair. Like, well, her hair is draining the life force because it's a spiral.
Mhm.
But it was good to see the infection of the spiral through the town in this sort of linear way, if that makes sense. It felt natural to me that other characters, other town folk started exhibiting behavior of the spiral, because it just seemed like the progression that that Uzumaki would take. So all in all, I think the plot is it's interesting, disturbing at times, but after thinking back, also kind of funny. Like I wasn't laughing when I was reading it, but now when you say stuff, it's like, yeah, like hair breakdancing competition or something.
Yeah, it was just so absurd. I couldn't not find it amusing.
But yeah, for me overall, not bad.
I just wonder, why aren't there any like paparazzi or anything? Because they said that even the villager, you know, gets cremated outside of the town. The spiral still, you know, shows up in the sky. Surely someone was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
I'm gonna investigate this town and maybe blow a wide open. And maybe they did behind the scenes, and you know, they too were obsessed by the spiral. It would be interesting to see if like any outsiders, what their reaction to this is.
Yeah, I also wonder what year approximately would this have been set in? Because do you remember if there were any mobile phones or computers?
Good question.
Yeah, it didn't date itself.
Yeah.
Well, I would imagine not. So it's drawn in 98, which means it was likely set in 98 or a bit before. So yeah, I could see there definitely not being mobiles.
Yeah, because maybe that was why, like, the news just didn't get out because no one could talk about it to anyone outside. But yeah, I would have thought like people, maybe some journalists in the town,
Yeah, like
would have just reported on it or something. But yeah, really weird.
It is. Although I guess cameras were a lot less prevalent pre smartphones, because mobiles weren't even like madly a thing in if at all. Actually, I'm not sure.
actually, because you know, instant cameras were a thing. Home video cams. So yeah, it is accessible, but I don't know. But I think I like it when shows like, or shows any sort of media, when they don't sort of include technology, because it's like this, you know, apart from the fashion, maybe you can't really date it back to any era, right? It still feels feel like it could happen nowadays, right? That was a really good point about the technology, because yeah, didn't notice that.
Yeah, whereas
also-
nowadays you go on Twitter and you're like, there's a spiral, what's going on?
Guys, I think I just saw a spiral in the sky.
Yeah.
Hashtag LOL.
Probably gonna die.
It would be ruined, wouldn't it?
Death omen. Yeah.
But like, I think maybe people would just be like, mate, that's a tornado or something, or just like
Oh yeah, there will be the skeptics who are like, that's obviously photoshopped, or you're just trying to get attention.
Yeah. I also maybe think like, what about if this was the curse of the spiral? Like, it made people not talk about it.
Possible.
So in our podcast, we have a special segment of our episodes where we place a character from the previous manga that we reviewed into the one that we are reviewing now. Last time we were reading To Your Eternity, where the main character was a being called Thushi. How do you guys think Fushi would fare in the world of Uzumaki in this town?
First things first, do they still have their abilities? Let's say they keep their abilities, right?
Sure.
I'll allow it. Yeah.
Okay. It's disturbing to think that they are able to turn into like any of the deceased, you know? But then are they really deceased if they're, I don't know.
I
don't know.
reckon, see, I think they'd play with the immortality quite a bit. So
Mm.
you have this spiral curse that appears every few millennia, few centuries, whatever. It's not very consistent. And then you also have an immortal, right? So where a regular person would just like, I'd assume, die if they got spiralified. If you're immortal and you get spiralified, what's going to happen? It's going to be awful. So I could see, I guess maybe like them trying to balance their Fushi trying to balance their learning of kind of the people of the town against trying not to be consumed by the spiral, or maybe even trying to understand why people are getting consumed by this spiral. There's a pretty nasty section where the main character is kind of trapped, and I could see it being like that, but spiral. If you're immortal and you can't die, and you go through something that definitely should kill you, it would be pretty miserable. So if we're keeping it as horror, you could definitely play on the immortality aspect.
I don't know if this was included, but the lovers who went into the sea.
In Uzumaki?
Uzumaki, yeah.
Snakes, right?
Yes, that's chapter
Yeah.
5.
Weren't they still alive when they spiralized?
Yeah, they were. I think. Yeah, because they turned into a fish thing. I don't know what that was. That was very weird. None of what happens makes sense, as long as the only rule is that there must be a spiral somewhere, as far as I can tell. But yeah, so what are you saying? How are you linking that to Fushi?
Because were you just saying that because Fushi is immortal, Fushi then becoming a spiral would sort of defeat the immortality, or?
And I think it would be a lot more miserable because he wouldn't be able to die from it. Some of them have and whatnot. But if you were just stuck as a spiral forever, maybe there could be a whole thing where, because he's the only one that like can actually live through it, he's got to defeat the curse. But then it would turn into a shonen, not a horror.
Special attack.
Yeah.
Spiralize. Get your courgettes.
Get the drill out.
Oh yeah, it's weird how you think that there are so many spirals in your life.
Before reading Uzumaki, I never thought about spirals that much. But now here we are, and I'm seeing spirals everywhere.
How much work is it going to take for you to turn it back into like the Naruto?
I just need to have a good ramen, then I'll be reset.
No more thoughts of hair spirals or anything.
No. Oh, the hair spirals I actually thought looked pretty good up until they started becoming alive.
And fighting.
And fighting, yes. That was
Yeah.
that Kujata still cracks me up. It's so weird.
Do you guys have any final thoughts on Uzumaki?
I generally enjoyed it. It was weird enough that I didn't really find it scary. So, to be honest, stuff like Berserk and Oyasumi Pumpan I found a lot more scary. This was almost comedy at points, which just due to being so off the wall weird. I enjoyed it. I thought the art was great. It worked really well for horror. None of the characters really stood out to me, but I suppose that's the point. It's not specifically about the characters. It's about kind of the spiral and the village in general. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
For me, I don't know. Now I know what sort of things not scares me. That makes me sort of cringe in sort of not fear, but makes my skin crawl. Now I know, yeah, what I don't like, because yeah, like I said, with self-mutilation, that's not something I enjoy.
I'd hope not.
as in I can't stand seeing. But overall, I think it's quite interesting how they sort of how Junji Ito sort of are able to turn sort of the mundane things into horrific monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me want to read on, because I want to see how crazy it gets, essentially, because even though it is expected that, you know, there will be something creepy at the end of every chapter, but you just want to know how crazy it gets, you know. You just want to see it happen, no matter how skin crawling it can get. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed it, most of it. Some bits I've just skimmed through, but I'll definitely continue, finish it, and can't wait to see how this crazy whirlwind of creepy stuff will end.
Sounds
For
good.
sure. Yeah, I think for me, my final thoughts on Uzumaki are probably that it's interesting to see how, even a while after I've read Uzumaki through, I still remember some of the bits that really disturbed me, and some bits that were truly horrifying. And I think that's a testament to Junji Ito for his skills as a mangaka, and his skills to tell a story that kind of stays with you. And yeah, I highly respect and admire his work and his stories. And I think especially for Uzumaki, it's a great kind of I like to think of it as a sort of classic horror manga in a way. It's just got the elements and, you know, the creepy stuff, the body horror, the, you know, people going kind of mad. Great manga.
So weird. So weird.
So weird and funny, but great. And yeah. So with us finishing our review of Uzumaki, it's time to move on to the next episode of OCHATO. But we have a special announcement to make about the next episode, because next episode will be our special recap episode where we recap all the manga that we've reviewed this year.
Yeah, for context, at the time of recording, it's kind of mid to late December. So this is for us end of year, but since this will probably go out, what, January? February?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Mhm.
Because we're well ahead. It's the end of season 1.
Yes. What do shonen protagonists usually do at the end of their season?
Run off to the sunset.
Yeah, go for it. Start a training arc.
Run.
Surely it would be a cliffhanger.
Oh, potentially. You know what this means? This means we need to read more shonen. If only we had, you know, let's see, Hunter x Hunter coming up at some point in the future.
If only.
Potentially.
If only. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Uzumaki.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Woo!